bluesy, jazzy thing. Let's see. Soft tender kisses, sidewinder missiles, are just some of the things that make my heart go boom. Still falls the rain, words clash like armies. It's fuel for the flame. If it's only love, why do we go? If it's only love, why do we hurt? If it's only love, why do we hurt? Why do we break up? Only to make up again. Make up again. By our own admission, sidestepped issues, only to walk on still thinner ice. Is that a surprise? Like moths to a flame, we've come back again. Is it the joy of the pain or the pain of the joy that keeps hanging as though it's right? If it's only love, why do we hurt? If it's only love, why do we hurt? If it's only love, why do we hurt? Why do we make up? Only to break up again. Yeah, break up again. If it's only love, why do we hurt? If it's only love, why do we hurt? If it's only love, why do we hurt? Why do we break up? Only to make up again.
I like that one change.
Thanks. It's good. You sound great, man.
Thanks.
Can I even employ you to play a little bit on some of my tunes if I ever?
Of course. Absolutely.
I'm gonna be
exchange.
for sure. Well, I have your
Yeah,
text.
but I have a bunch of numbers with no names on them. So
Oh yeah, you're trying to
I
figure
could
out.
probably figure it out, but
I'll
let's
just
make
write
sure
I'm
it's
Jack
okay.
or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. Or share your contact information or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we? Let's try this because you kind of like this song before. You are so beautiful. Oh, is it? I know it. I have a
Yeah.
on this side.
On the left
That
side,
side.
yeah.
Yeah, I have a cold
From
sore.
the pick maybe, or did you?
No, you know, I have a cold sore that came up.
Oh,
so
man.
it's like it sucks, but
Pain in the ass.
is it alright? It's still
Looks
bleeding.
good now.
It's- okay, I'll keep you licking it every once in a while.
Looks like you're really into your singing. This guy gives it everything.
Hey, I bleed. I bleed
right.
on stage. Blood, sweat, and tears.
That's right. Blood, sweat, tears. Yeah, there we go.
Let's see. Did we play this before? When people were here?
Maybe when we were like before we played. Yeah.
And I'm alone and I feel a bit blue. Close my eyes and I think of you. Put on my shoes, walk out that door. Take a long walk to the convenience store. A gallon of milk and a six-pack of beer. I ask myself, what am I doing here? 3 long weeks since you've been gone. The party's over, baby. Now alone. I'll be your baby and you'll be my queen. I'll wash the dishes and I'll keep this place clean. I'll be your baby and you'll be my queen. I'll wash those dishes and I'll keep this place clean. For you. Hey, pretty baby, now don't you fret. I'm coming home and I'm bringing bread. We'll buy us a castle where we can dwell. All the other ne'er-do-wells can go straight down. 'Cause I got mine, you get yours. Together we'll make quite a tour de force. Rambling round the neighborhood, yeah, ain't good if not being misunderstood. Rambling round the neighborhood, we'll be good, we'll be bad, we'll be misunderstood. I'll be a baby, you'll be my queen. I'll wash the dishes and I'll keep this place clean. I'll be your baby and you'll be my queen. I'll wash those dishes and I'll keep this place clean. For you. I'll be your baby and you'll be my queen. I'll wash those dishes and I'll keep this place clean. I'll be your baby, you'll be my queen. I'll wash those dishes and I'll keep this place clean. For you. Nice.
Sounds good, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
You sound great, man. Oh yeah, I'm down. I'm starting to hit the road.
Take it on the road. Somebody clapped. Somebody.
Guess that I'm crazy. I'm crazy about you. Know
just like we rehearsed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice.
I can hold you tight, make love through the night. Kisses fall like rain, violins they play. I can be a rock, hard but prone to cry. Ageless,
He wants to go back about 5 more minutes.
I can hold you tight, make love through the night. Kisses fall like rain, violins they play. I can be a rock, hard but prone to crack. Ageless, oh relentless. Oh, when you can be so cruel. Oh, when you get into those moods. And I don't know what to do, but I'm fearless. Oh, I'm fearless. Yeah, yes I am. The love we have is great, and even it can take misery we break. Inch by inch we claw, stubborn to a flaw. Yeah, never giving in. Oh, and you can be so cruel when you get into those moods. Oh, and I don't know what to do, but I'm fearless. Oh, I'm fearless. Yes, I am. Oh, and I don't know what to do. Yeah, when you get into those moods. Oh, I don't know what to do, but I'm fearless. Oh, I'm fearless. Yes, all right. Sure. Should we do that song? All right. Okay. Now you know what? I'm just gonna keep sitting. All right. Hi everyone. Welcome to this event, and thank you all for coming. And we do ask you to move closer if you can, just because we want to see everyone and have everyone participate. So come closer. Don't be shy. And we're going to do one song. I got called in just last night to play, so I was trying to find a song that had to do with the environment, and most of my songs are kind of like love songs and breakup songs, so I scratched my head and I did find one. It's really about kind of a meditation on what it is to be an individual and what it is to be one with the world. So, you know, we all share the same atoms and breathe the same air and look at the same stars. So this song is a little bit about that. I hope you enjoy it. Ready? whale in the ocean, blue, and up in the sky. The moon and the stars for you. An antidote to innocence for those who walked before. A rocking chair for the old and worn. A mirror on the wall. Oh, you see, you could have been anyone. Oh, and I could have been you. We walk alone on common ground, shapes without a hue. You see, you could have been anyone, and I could have been you. We walk alone on sacred ground, shapes without a hue. And there's a flower in the ground, a whale in the ocean, blue, and up in the sky. The moon and the stars for you.
Sounded good, man. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Let the festivities begin. Let me introduce Margaret Galbraith, the president of Transition Town, Port Washington, who also happens to be my wife, so I'm extra happy to introduce her. Woohoo.
Hi, everyone. Is this working? Hello? Okay, now it is. I just want to thank you all for coming. Welcome. We're glad that each and every one of you are here tonight. Before we get started, I want to thank the Landmark on Main Street. This is actually the third year in a row that we have partnered with them on our climate action series or presentations as part of their Conversations on Main Street series, which is supported by the Angela and Scott Jaggar Foundation. And I also want to thank Councilwoman Delamonte, who came tonight, so I'm so glad you're here. And I want to thank all the panelists who came from near and far to come and share their expertise tonight, so thank you. And thank you to the wonderful musicians who are here. And as you've heard, one of them stepped up at very late notice. And I'm really happy for Amanda Perez, Leader Perez, who is our moderator. She's fantastic, so we're happy to have her here tonight. We are being live streamed, and we are being recorded, just so you know that. So Transition Town Port Washington is actually part of a global movement of communities that are working together to transition off of fossil fuels and to reimagine and rebuild a better world. And we're friends and neighbors and concerned citizens, so I'm hoping that all of you in the audience, who many of you I know, and online will join us in this important work. And right now is actually a very critical time. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change just released a report, and this panel is part of hundreds of scientists weigh in on it. It's signed by hundreds of, I think, 200 countries. So their report says that in the next 6 years, we must act or we will suffer we have to reverse course or we'll suffer the worst effects of climate change. So basically what we do in this next 6 years will determine what life will be like on this earth for generations to come. And just to put, I was thinking about this, to put that in perspective, I have a middle schooler. By the time she graduates from high school, the die will be cast. So it's vitally important that we act now. And so I'm really glad with that. I know it's hard to take, but with that, I'm glad you're all here, and we're going to talk about the impediments to this change, and we'll find a way to forge forward, because we have to, into a better world. So with that, I want to introduce our moderator, Amanda Perez. Thank you. And I'm supposed to give mics. All right. And this is Billy. All right. Thank you.
Wait, are you supposed to sit in that seat, right? I think I'm so. Yeah. I'm going last. I'll grab that over.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Margaret, for that introduction. Like she said, my name is Amanda Perez, leader, and I want to welcome all of you. I got the chance to meet many of you in those first 30 minutes, but to those I didn't get to, thank you so much for showing up tonight. Next slide. First, let me just start by saying that I've probably been in this theater 100 times, ranging from events like preschool graduation, summer camp shows, rock concerts where we've been dancing right here at Landmark, ballets, author events. I've never been on stage, and I have to say this is pretty cool. And most importantly, it's really, really wonderful looking out on my fellow community members. So I just want to spend just a few minutes before we jump into the panel, just giving you a little bit of a context around our very intentional design, right? So we are hoping that today does not feel like your typical panel, right? We have not squeezed 5 minutes at the end for rushed Q&A, right? We have intentionally built several discussion points throughout the remainder of the programming. In fact, we already have some questions that some of you submitted on the pre-survey that was sent via email earlier this week. There's a live stream happening. We'll also potentially get some questions coming in through that as well. And most importantly, tonight is a conversation. That's why we have intentional breaks throughout to really hear your questions, comments, and concerns. That being said, there will be a regular cadence around how the panelists present their expertise, right? So they will all speak to a few or all of these questions. What is the top concern that they have about either the plastics industry, gas industry, or the state of climate at large? What's a myth that they really want to take this time together with you tonight to help dispel, right? There's a lot of misinformation out there. They're going to help us pick through that. And then opportunities. They're all going to talk about opportunities that we have to protect our health and our shared environment. And I want to highlight the opportunity there, right? You know, in thinking about, we were preparing for a few weeks this event, and it led us to really think about all the opportunities that have recently been seized, very recently, right? So thinking back just 5-6 years ago, we actually had an event here at Landmark, and the topic of getting rid of plastic bags came up, and there was a ton of doubt. No way, we're so reliant on plastic bags. They're used everywhere, every retail store, every supermarket. Well, guess what? We got rid of them, right? The reusable tote is a common staple down Main Street at Stop and Shop, right? Young people. Oh my goodness, opportunities abound with them. I've got my daughter in the audience who was mentored by another audience member and just put together a hugely successful youth climate event where 100 of their peers showed up at the library with the support of Residents Forward and Port Washington Community Chest to educate one another on how they can act locally and nationally around climate change, right? And then Congress last year, right, passed the most significant legislation in the history of our country, the Inflation Reduction Act. I know it doesn't sound like it was a climate bill, but it was, right? That will hopefully do a lot to help halt and hopefully reverse, right, climate change. So opportunity is around us, right? So I want you to think about that as we hear some heavy news tonight, stuff that's really gonna kind of weigh on our hearts and minds. As you consider that heaviness, also think about the opportunities that we have to seize, right? And other odds that we can beat, right? Tonight is also about education. I've gotten to know these folks over the last few weeks. I've learned a ton. I'm so excited for what you have to learn. You'll see with the interactive activity that we did earlier, right? So thank you for being honest. There's a whole lot of concern in this room. That's why you're here. Thank you for showing up. And then on the spectrum of how informed you feel, while some of us feel quite informed, a lot of us feel not so much. So we're hoping that by the end of the evening, you move closer from 1 to 2 and move closer to 5, from 1 to 2 to 5, leaving here much more informed about what you can do to make your homes and communities safer. And then after about 75 minutes of panel, and again, regular discussion, we're gonna have some self-reflection, make some commitments in front of one another around how we wanna act, and then we're gonna close with some song. How does that sound to folks? Good, awesome. Would also like too your consent on some group agreements, right? So we keep the panel and the discussion as participatory and inclusive as possible. So has anyone ever heard of the jargon giraffe? Anyone? Any other educators in the room? Trainers? All right, well, welcome to the world of jargon giraffe. Do you want to take your hands up? Right? And you can kind of make a motion like that with your hand. You are now doing the jargon giraffe, right? At any point tonight, if jargon, an acronym, lingo is used that you don't understand but want to understand, you put up the jargon giraffe, right? And that's a moment of clarity, not just for you, but probably others, right? Because sometimes, right, experts and folks that are doing this work every day, we can fall into that jargon, right? Not intentionally, but in the spirit of inclusion and learning, go ahead, don't be afraid, use the jargon giraffe. How does that sound? Thumbs up? Great. Dissent is welcome. What does that mean? It's completely unrealistic to think that we're all going to agree, right, on the best ways to move forward and take action, right? So dissent, concerns, different perspectives are welcomed and they're important. And we trust that you'll make those dissents and disagreements respectfully. How does that sound? Thumbs up? Super. And then we want to co-create a space where everyone can participate tonight. So what that really looks like is if there's someone who really wants to get in and contribute maybe for a third, fourth, or fifth time, but we see someone over here that is just speaking up for the first time, we're most likely going to give space for that new voice to contribute. Okay? Hope that feels great to all of you. We are going to move on to the next slide. And I'm going to, actually, he already has the mic. We're going to start our panel with Anshul Gupta, who is a research scientist and climate advocate. Because you all have your flyers in front of you, and because we want to really jump right in, instead of reading Anshul's very long and accomplished bio, I've asked all the panelists if you can start off by sharing your professional role in just 1 or 2 sentences.
Sure. So I'm a research scientist with with IBM Research. I've been with IBM Research since 1995, worked on a variety of things. I'm also a senior policy advisor for New Yorkers for Clean Power, a role that I started just this Monday. And I'm a New York State a steering committee member of the New York State Chapters Coalition of the Climate Reality Project, which is an international organization founded and led by former Vice President Al Gore.
Thank you. Wonderful. Next slide. So our first question for Anshul is, Anshul, if you can talk a little bit about your top concern about the state of our climate at this time.
Sure. So my top concern about the state of the climate is that the general public isn't really fully aware of the depth of the crisis that we are looking at. And I'm going to start with an analogy that everyone can relate to. So at the end of February in 2020, President Trump made a statement, which was a correct statement, that there are only 15 cases of COVID, and hopefully it'll go away soon. This was end of February 2020, last week of February. First week of April, we were registering 30,000 new cases of COVID every single day. So that's what transpired in those 5 weeks. This is something that the scientists knew, the scientists were predicting, but nobody, almost nobody could think in their wildest dreams. So the fact that we are underestimating the climate crisis, just like we underestimated the pandemic at its beginning stages, that's my biggest concern.
Thank you. Next slide. And you've got some slides to talk us through that concern with a little bit more detail.
Yes. So that's reflected in the IPCC reports, which keep getting more and more dire with each new report. Yet, we're not taking the action at the pace at which we need to take. Next slide, please. So far, since the beginning of the industrial age, through our activities, we have warmed the atmosphere about 1.2 degrees Celsius since the middle of 1750s. If we continue on the course on which we are, by the end of this century, we would reach a warming of 2.7 degrees Celsius. These numbers look very small, but the problem is that 2 degrees is not twice as worse as 1 degree. 2 degrees is almost 10 times as worse as 1 degree in terms of climate impacts, impacts on storms, the severity of droughts, the severity of flooding. And 3 degrees would be another 10 times worse. So probably like 100 times worse than 1 degree. Which is why at 1.2, we can sort of feel these things, but we can't really wrap our heads around what we are looking at by the end of the century, which is within the lifetime of a child born today. Next slide, please. So I'm quickly going to jump to New York State. And by the way, the IPCC reports also state, which is true in the world as well as in New York State, that we have all the solutions that we can deploy at the speed and scale needed to tackle the climate crisis. And we are still not doing that, which is unfortunate. And some of the reasons why we are not doing that is what today's panel is about. So in New York State, our buildings are the biggest source of climate emissions, which is the orange part in this pie chart. And the reason is that we burn a lot of natural gas, which leaks everywhere, and which is chemically methane, and methane itself is 83 times more powerful than the more common climate culprit that we know, carbon dioxide, in warming the atmosphere in the near term. So our homes and buildings, buildings include our homes, are the biggest source of climate pollution in New York State. Next slide, please.
Who's surprised by that homes and buildings are the biggest pollutants? Yeah, I was too.
Yeah, it's not our power plants which are a distant third. After homes and buildings, it's transportation. But anyway, and it's not just the climate. The health impact of burning fossil fuels in our homes and buildings are pretty dire. New York State leads the nation in deaths uh, from the pollution that results from burning fossil fuels in our homes and buildings. Uh, 2,000 deaths annually in New York State, and $22 billion in healthcare impact. And this is just from the outdoor pollution. So when we use our boilers and furnaces and the pollution goes out of the chimneys, is that. Next slide. This is this shows what happens from the indoor pollution. Uh, it's estimated that 19% of all childhood asthma in New York State is just from gas stoves. So that's how severe the health impact is, both indoor and outdoor. Um, Next slide.
Thank you for that information and for kind of laying out your top concerns about the state of the climate. I'm sure we feel just as concerned, if not more, by some of that data. Now, if you can take an opportunity, Anshul, to, in your work, right, what are those common myths that you hear around the state of our climate that you really want to take some time to help us better understand and dispel?
Thank you. So that's the next slide. So the biggest myth that I hope we can dispel is that New York State is moving too fast and too soon.
Have folks heard that? A fear of too fast? As if New Yorkers are really concerned about moving too fast?
And nothing could be farther from the truth. You might have heard that New York State has the most ambitious climate goals in the country, and we have a nation-leading climate law, which was passed in 2019. But in the last 4 years, we have literally done nothing. So New York is moving way too slowly. And why it's moving way too slowly is in the next few slides. So so one of the reasons why we are moving too slowly is because of the massive disinformation campaign by the fossil fuel industry, which has been going on for the last 40 years. It's a playbook of denial, doubt, and delay. So first they denied that there's any such thing as human-caused climate change. Then they started casting doubts on what the causes are, and now we are in a stage of indefinite delay because they've moved on to from casting doubt on climate change to casting doubt about climate solutions. And this is the fossil fuel industry's current strategy, that they would like to shoot down any proposals by sort of pointing out imaginary problems with every possible climate action. And in New York State, the gas utilities have basically picked a page from this playbook, which has been fine-tuned over several decades, and it's being played on all of us in New York State. Next slide.
And Anshul, that will be in the follow-up materials, the prior slide, the Frontline documentary.
Yes, and I would highly encourage people to watch that. It's an eye-opener. So in New York State, the three main players who are sort of part of the climate disinformation and slowing down climate action. One is the fossil fuel, the gas utilities, and other fuel industries like the propane industry and the heating oil industry themselves. They're doing that on their own. The second, and then they have these what we call front group or astroturfing groups with sort of very friendly and harmless sounding names like New Yorkers for affordable energy. So who wouldn't, I mean, who wouldn't want affordable energy? And it looks like that all New Yorkers, there's a group of New Yorkers who are part of this campaign, New Yorkers for Affordable Energy, but there are no real people in that group. It's just fossil fuel industry, not within New York State, but also American Petroleum Institute and sort of other national groups. And the third sort of party is their business associates. We still want to stay in the previous slide. Yes, thanks. I don't know if you can see, so the New York State Business Council is the chairperson of the council is also the president of National Fuel, which is the biggest, one of the big gas utilities. And National Fuel is a part of this front group, New Yorkers for Affordable Energy. This is, they're right in the middle. And National Fuel themselves, as we speak, is running a huge robocalling campaign in Western New York, Buffalo, scaring people that the blizzards, events like the blizzards that they had, will be devastating if we move away from natural gas, and all of these are complete lies. And by the way, when I was researching the business council, they still call her the chairman, which kind of shows you how regressive the whole organization is. So they were having trouble reconciling that the president of National Fuel is a woman. Just a side note.
Thank you for doing that research.
Next
slide.
slide, please. And yes, so I think you're already biased from what I've told you so far. But if you see something like this, how would you react to this? Would you agree with the message? Would you disagree?
What do you notice about, the logo and the colors and
Yeah,
very
and
pleasant?
yeah, and who wouldn't want to be associated with something which is smart, right? Nobody wants to feel dumb. So if all of us want to be for smarter New York energy. Next slide, please. But this is also a front group set up by the New York Propane Gas Association and New York's Voices for Biofuel Heat. So no one really cares how their homes are heated, about the fuel. People care about the comfort, people care about reliability, and they want to heat their homes with the least possible cost. Some of the most expensive ways of heating your homes are propane and heating oil. There's no such thing as New York Voices for biofuel heat. Next slide. Okay, so this is an internal communication that we intercepted from the gas utility front group, New Yorkers for Affordable Energy, and they lay out their strategy. So I didn't have to, Amanda wanted me to prepare a slide to sort of explain to everyone how the gas industry is gaslighting us. But I didn't have to make a slide because the gas industry provided the slide themselves. So you can, we don't want to read the whole slide, but you can see the campaign is, you can see the depth and the breadth of the campaign. They have all the bases covered. From grassroots outreach to TV ads, robocalls, op-eds, media interviews, they have everything. So they're bombarding us with disinformation from every possible source of information would be sending you the same well-coordinated message.
And you see, I think, one more slide. Let's see. Where'd it go?
Yeah,
This is
the previous one. Okay, so this is just one example. So on July 6th, an op-ed appeared in Crane's New York Business by a vice president of National Grid, and it said that green hydrogen is basically a fossil-free option that is produced by separating hydrogen from the water molecule, leaving only water vapor behind. So there's a little bit of a problem here. That this person is a lawyer, he doesn't know any science. If you take hydrogen out of the water molecule, you can't have water vapor left behind because water vapor is also made up of water molecules. When you separate hydrogen from water molecules, you leave oxygen. So this person made a mistake, but it's an honest mistake. He's a lawyer. Now,
We love our lawyers.
yes. Now, on August 1st, in Newsday, an op-ed appears by the executive director of, I can't read the slide, but
The Riverhead Chamber of Commerce.
Riverhead Chamber of Commerce, not too far from here. And the lady writes exactly the same thing. You can, these are quotes from that op-ed. So what are the chances that the Riverhead Chamber of Commerce's executive director not only made the same mistake, but expressed it in identical language? Okay, so fast forward another month. Now we move to Albany. Albany Times Union, the CEO of the Center for Economic Growth, again, very nice sounding name, who doesn't want economic growth, but it's again a right-wing group. They had sort of the commentary in the Albany Times Union. I think the text has disappeared from the bottom of the slide, but it had, again, the same sentence appeared in Albany Times Union a month later. So, so you can see how the gas industry and their front groups are coordinating with sort of fossil fuel friendly business groups to spread exactly the same message. Green hydrogen is not a real solution to be pumped under high pressure through gas utility pipes into your homes. Remember the Hindenburg? So yes, but that's what National Grid would have us believe. Next slide, please. Yes, and now the propane industry and the heating oil industry's front group. These are the ads as we speak. They're running now. This ad is active. It started on April 11th to derail climate-related bills in the New York State budget, which is being negotiated right now. So. So you can if you can read the text, you can see how enticing the language is, enticing as well as scary, because once you read that, you won't want to go the route that they say that New York State is going.
Let's read it together. It says, New York's proposed climate action plans will force the rapid, untested switch to to electrify everything. The way you heat your home, cook your food, and drive your car. It could undermine our electric grid and cost New Yorkers thousands of dollars. There are better solutions. And actually, I want to use that opportunity to attach a question. This came from one of you via the pre-event survey. I never knew that the gas industry is lying to the public. Interested in finding out how, right? So thank you for these examples. And what can be done. Also, the participant asks, why are they lying? How would you answer that?
Why are they lying? Because they want to continue selling gas because that's their business. That's how they make money. How many people know that the gas utilities don't make a dime from the gas they sell you? How many people knew that? Or how many people didn't know that?
Most didn't.
Most of them, yes. So the gas, by law, they have to sell you the gas at the price at which they bought it. So how do you think they make money then? And why are they still sort of against electrification or against climate action?
Margaret's got the walking microphone if anyone wants to take a
Yes,
Hookup fees, installation?
yes. And do I have time to ask them another question?
Sure, one more, and then we're going to move to Billy. Thank you, Anshul.
Okay. So, in your neighborhood, if a new home is built and they get the gas hookup, they get that gas hookup for free. And who pays for that? You all are paying for that. The cost of that hookup adds like a fraction of a penny to your gas bills for next several years. But all this adds up by all the new gas hookups, not just from new buildings, but also from people who are moving from propane or oil heat to natural gas. So those hookups are free, it's a subsidy, and you all are paying for that through your gas bills. And that's how the gas utilities make money.
Thank you. Before we actually move to Billy, want to just make space if there's any questions or concerns about the information Anshul has shared with us. Oh, I know. She's not a plant, but she's my daughter.
How do you know when you see ads like this that look very like real and like not fake if they're like accurate or not?
It's very simple in this case. Check the source. Everything that comes from the fossil fuel industry is probably false. We have a joke that after oil and gas, disinformation is the most widely distributed product of the fossil fuel industry.
Another inquiry, curiosity, different perspective that anyone would want to share. Okay, as you, oh, please. Oh. No?
Yes, no?
Okay. Cynthia, was that you? Oh, you're just saying hi. That's amazing.
Okay.
That's amazing.
Hi.
I see Doug's hand.
Oh, wait, don't talk yet. Get my exercise this way.
What's your opinion on how these ads and the money that pours in affects the decisions of our elected officials when it comes to transitioning to green energy and economy?
Thank you for that question. It's a very important question. I should have covered that. It has a profound effect. We hear that from our legislators because these campaigns, even though they're directed at the public, they intimidate our lawmakers because now the lawmakers think that this is what my constituents believe. Okay? So I don't want to vote for a bill that will mandate emissions-free new buildings. Even though in almost all of New York State right now, all electric new buildings are cheaper to both construct and operate. We still can't get that done in New York State. Germany, just today, it was in the news today, they mandated a blanket ban on gas in all new buildings starting January 1st, 2024, in just a few months. In skyscrapers, homes, everywhere, at 8 months' notice. In New York State, we are having trouble getting this done with a 5-year or 5 to 6 year time frame because of these campaigns.
And yet the myth you constantly hear is that we're moving too fast.
And we have, yes.
Thank you. Okay, if you could pass that mic over to Billy. And Sean, just a few more slides. Keep going. There we go. It is so cozy. So Billy Roberti is the owner of Green Choices Consulting. She's a local Long Islander, a little further east. And Billy, why don't you start by letting us know, again, your professional role in 1 or 2 sentences, if possible.
Hi, everyone. I am the owner of Green Choices Consulting. I formed it after we did a total green gut rehab of our house. We learned a lot in 2 years of studying and planning. And now I consult with people who want to have a cleaner, greener, or leaner home like mine.
Wonderful.
So I'm not asking anyone to do anything I haven't already done myself.
Nice. Great. So, Billy, if you can lay out for us your top concerns about gas and the gas industry, please.
Yeah, next. My top concern is the gas industry lies. Natural gas is safe, clean, and affordable. If you knew how many subsidies the gas companies get, the fossil fuel companies get, you'd find out that you're paying in all quiet ways that you don't know about to keep that gas looking cheap when it really isn't. And the other one, heat pumps. The heat pumps won't keep you warm. Now that's a shock to me because one has been keeping me warm for the last 12 years. And these lies hold us back from doing what we know we need to do. We're afraid. We're saying, how can we live without gas? They've told us, oh, you're cooking with gas. Oh, gas is great. And we believe it. And it's so hard to change. But frankly, it isn't. And the only reason why I have a geothermal heat pump is because I was more than 100 feet away from the natural gas main line. I would have had to pay that extra $35 fee, 35 feet, and that was going to cost several $100s, and it wasn't going to be mine. And so we looked for another alternative, and we found out that what we got was not that much more than it would have been if we'd converted to natural gas, and cleaner, and it's cheaper to run. Okay, gas is the new asbestos. Everyone remember asbestos? It was in so many houses for a long time. We thought it was fine. Then we find out that it's causing lung problems. Gas is a new asbestos. In the last 2 years, so much research has come out about how harmful just cooking with your stove if you don't have a vent going. Asthma, problems with people with COPD. People now with COVID injuries with their lungs. It's not safe. And from the wellhead to your home, it's leaking all over the place. And the estimates that you see almost anywhere are too low. And then, of course, with a gas leak, you can have an explosion. You can have a fire. You can die from carbon monoxide. And we hear these things happening. We see them. There are fires almost every year because of gas leaks. And if anyone remembers, about 2 or 3 years ago, the whole Merrimack Valley in Massachusetts went up in flames and explosions due to gas. It was a mistake by the utility, but it was still gas that did it. And if we burn it, outdoors, you know, what's going up our chimneys? Do we ever think about what's going up our chimneys? At least carbon dioxide, and there are other things like nitrogen oxides. They're finding in the house that you're finding formaldehyde, benzene, toluene. These, you know, do you want to get embalmed in your home while you're living there? I don't. I'm not ready yet. And then we talk about indoors, what they're really finding, and just the gas stove, cooking with it every day, releases all these nitrogen oxides, which have been found to cause any respiratory problem to be worse. What was it? 18% of the asthma can be traced back to gas stoves in New York State.
Wow.
Okay.
So thanks, Billy, for all that important information. And in your education, right, as you kind of help consumers think about how to, again, make their home more free of gas, safer, healthier, what are those like really persistent myths that you come up against that you want to spend some time talking about?
Next slide. Next slide. That heat pumps don't work. And I'd like you to ask, how many people think they have a heat pump in their home?
Who's got one already in their home? By a show of hands. Any
kind of
heat pump. Oh,
One person back there. Anyone else?
we got a jargon draft. So exactly what do you mean by a heat pump?
A heat pump is a technology that moves heat. It's been around for a good while, and I'm telling you, every single one of you has at least one heat pump in your home.
Anyone want to take a guess?
Refrigerators.
Yeah.
Move heat out of the box and into your kitchen. When you ever look at your coils or your feeder, or like if you have coils from the bottom of your refrigerator, the heat around there it's warmer on those on the floor
Or on the back too, right, Billy?
or in the back, but you may not notice it in the back because you're in the front of it.
Yeah.
It's moving the heat out of the building, out of the room, out of the box, the ice box. You know, it used to be a box with ice in it, and it would melt, and then the iceman would come. We put him out of business with the refrigerators. The other one is the air conditioner. What does an air conditioner do? Moves heat in the summer out of your house and into the outdoors. Anyone been around an air conditioner, a central air conditioner, in the summertime and how hot and humid it is? That's it. So a heat pump technology has been proven. We take it for granted. How many people here, when they went to get a new refrigerator, asked the salesman how it works?
Looks
But
like
do you know
nobody.
how many times I'm asked about a heat pump, which I'm going to talk about? They're all heat pumps. But when we talk about a heat pump, we're talking about a specific kind. And heat pumps that heat and cool the house. Not just cool it, but heat it. We have air source heat pumps, which is kind of like an air conditioner, central air conditioner, but it also pulls heat out of the air in the wintertime. Now, you don't think there's much heat there. But, you know, anyone know what absolute zero is? You can't get there. It's so cold. It's minus 273 degrees centigrade. I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit. It's very large number, minus. As long as it's about minus 5 degrees, an air source heat pump, a cold climate air source heat pump, can pull that heat out. And then the heat pump actually compresses the refrigerant that we have in refrigerators and air conditioners, and it causes it to heat up. And that's how you heat. So this picture is showing a ductless system. Here's the outdoors, and that object on the wall, at the top of the wall, is called, you know, the non-jargon term is head. And you have a remote control that controls what temperature you want that room to be, when you want it to go on, how you want the louvers to move, how high the fan is, all of this. That's a ductless system. It means you don't have to tear down walls and lose closets you don't have to put in ducts. And this is very popular. It's also called a mini split. And the full term is ductless mini split air source heat pump. Say it fast. I prefer the term ductless because it makes it clear you don't need ducts. And how many people have radiators that are heating? They don't have ducts. They don't want to put in ducts and, lower ceilings and lose closets. This is very popular, but it's got to be a cold climate one. People say heat pumps don't work. They're talking about what I call a Florida heat pump. It works in Florida, but it's not geared to keep you warm in a cold climate like New York. Now, this is a geothermal heat pump. Now, it doesn't show the heat pump itself, which is inside the house. The key difference is that you've got a loop system in the ground. And now, instead of exchanging heat with the outdoors, where it may be like over Christmas, 4 degrees, it's exchanging heat underground, which stays about 55 degrees year-round. So you already got this huge lift. And in the summertime, same thing. You're trying to cool the house down to maybe 70, 75, and you're trying to dump heat out into the air, which could already be 80, 85, 90 or more. So the geothermal heat pump, because of its source, which is also called ground source, it's more efficient, but you got to pay for the loop. So there's a bigger upfront cost, but a greater savings in using. And they work. Next slide. Okay, now this is what's interesting, is this new thing, which I think someone else talked about, Anshul, thermal energy networks, TENS, also known as district geothermal. They're doing a lot of this in Massachusetts. Why? Because they got this great organization called HEAT, which has been showing in studies how great this system is. Because instead of each person having to put in their own loop system and costing a lot, In that case, it's, I think it's, I forgot the name of the company, is putting it in along the street like you would have your gas pipes running along the street. You have these pipes filled with water going along the street, and each person who has a heat pump simply hooks into that water pipe like you would a gas. But you never take the water out. It just comes in, exchanges heat with the heat pump, and goes out again. So there are places like data centers that are paying thousands of dollars a year to keep things cool. Well, you know what? They'll dump that into the loop. And down the street, someone's heating from that heat. Supermarkets with all the refrigeration, all the freezers that it's costing them a fortune to run, they'll just be dumping it into that loop, and someone else will be using it. So we're kind of recycling that heat.
Wonderful, pretty efficient.
Other heat pump appliances, these not many people have heard about. There's the hot water heater, which is, they call it a hybrid hot water heater, because that black piece at the top is a heat pump. It's getting heat out of the air in wherever you have your hot water heater, and then it's boosting it up with an electric, heating element, and it gets so it's like it's not all electric running the heat. It's also running the heat pump. And this, on the other side, is what I just got. I've had it for like 2 or 3 weeks. It's a washer heat pump tower. It's all one piece, and it's a standard washer, front loading, and then the top one it's a heat pump dryer, and it's so much cheaper to run, and you do not need a vent because there's no hot humid air coming out like you would with a normal heat pump, with a normal dryer. Instead, it cools it down and sends it into the same, sewer system, septic system that your washer water is going into.
Mm-hmm.
So these are other things, replacements for what we have. Next slide.
I'm going to go back for just 1 second because that was a lot of great information about our homes and appliances, maybe some we've heard of and some we haven't. Just want to pause to see if there are some questions or concerns you want to raise about anything that Billy just shared across those several slides. Thanks, Margaret. Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're asking that we use the microphone so that our folks who are online can hear.
All right. And you may be talking about this after, but so if a gas stove isn't great, what is recommended?
Yes, we're gonna. That's a good forecasting question. Chef Matt will talk about. You know what? Let's actually do that now.
We have one more question.
There is a slide too.
There is a slide.
Amanda, we have one more question
Sure.
before we move on.
Oh, hi, I just wanted to ask about the geothermal, both of those systems you were explaining. So where has it been used where the groundwater is from underneath us? Outside of Long Island, has it been tested and
Okay, how
been
about
successful?
Alaska, Canada, Scandinavia,
Oh, really?
Switzerland, Germany, France, England?
They all exclusively use aquifers for their water?
No, we're not. What we're showing is loops. We're not going into the aquifer.
I know, but you still have to dig down, and we're so close to sea level
Yeah,
here.
this
It's like
is-
really, it's
Yeah,
a little
there's concerns
negligent,
about
and there's
that.
zero legislation
Actually-
monitoring anybody doing it. Any
Actually,
person can do it.
Suffolk County has a geothermal code that can be.
They did. They just got one. I
Yeah,
guess.
and they've had that since about 2014, 2013.
Huh. Well, we definitely don't have any
It's not binding.
legislation
Each
in
town
Nassau.
has to accept it, and Nassau can take that same code.
Yeah.
Um,
What experts, though, what scientists are saying that this is good for the environment? I'm just curious.
The National Renewable Energy Lab,
person selling
Oak
it.
Ridge National Laboratory, all these Department of
Labs,
Energy.
Hey, Billy, isn't also very critical, and for Fran's concerns about the water safety, the difference between open and closed loop systems?
That's what I was going to get to. We recommend closed loop system, like you see those loops. Now they dig a hole, and the loop goes in and comes out, and goes in and comes out if they need that much loop. And while they're doing that, they're filling the remainder, what's the vacancy in the hole, with a thermal grout, which seals off each layer. So if you actually drill through a layer of an aquifer, and you usually don't drill that deeply anyway, but if you do, it's the thermal grout seals off that water so that it doesn't mix in with any other water supply that's there.
That's
But
closed loop.
That's closed loop. And generally, most places don't drill close to 500 feet. Once you want to go deeper than 500 feet, you need to get a mining permit, which is what they did with St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City. That is geothermal, and they went down very deep into bedrock. But the Catholic Church has got deep pockets.
Sounds like
Okay, we haven't.
There's no freon in these pipes. They're water. They're water antifreeze. So if it leaks, you're leaking water, maybe a little bit of antifreeze. And these are the same pipes that are used for gas pipes. Same pipes.
Can we have one other question over here and then another question?
But I
This
it
isn't-
sounds.
This isn't.
I just want to. Oh, please go ahead.
This is not a question. This is just a friend of mine put in geothermal. She lives on Haven Avenue, and she has it in her house. She put it in about 10 years ago. So it's definitely possible to
It's
do
in our
here.
town. Yeah.
Yep.
What's there?
Fran, I just want to. I don't want to lose Fran's concern about
It
the
is-
water safety, and we're in a unique area, right, in Long Island, being so close to the aquifers. So I think maybe it sounds like a good opportunity for us to kind of talk about this more. Maybe send some follow-up materials, but also recognize that perhaps there is this tension locally that we need to kind of discuss more, collaborate more with the water safety community. I think collaboration sounds like it would be key here, so that both environmental groups feel like their concerns are being considered.
Well, I'm a member of the Long Island Commission on Aquifer Protection's Subcommittee on Conservation, and this was brought up.
Great.
And that's, and I addressed it as that we don't really recommend open loop systems on Long Island, though there are some. Frankly, the water's so acidic that it tends to destroy the pumps.
Yeah.
So it's not that practical.
Okay.
No, not LICAP, the subcommittee, the conservation subcommittee. And we put together our waterourlives.org
Okay.
if you want to know more about the conservation, water conservation. It is really very important. It's our sole source aquifer. We can't afford to sully it anyway.
Agreed. I think we all agree to that. Was there another question or
Yeah, there was.
comment, Margaret?
David, did you have anything that you want to say? Wait.
No, we need.
Hold on, David, so folks online can hear you well.
I'm sorry.
So how do we assess whether our particular property or our neighborhood is a good space for applying geothermal?
Well, one thing they should do is a core sample to see what's in your ground. Is there water along the way? Is it sand? Is it clay? Are there boulders? They don't necessarily already do that, but if it's like that next to your neighbor next door or down, just closely down the street, chances are it's yours, true with you too. But I have a whole assessment that I do when I go to someone's house, or I call them. When I talk to them, I fill in some gaps, and then I go visit and get an idea of how much space they have. I visited someone in Point Lookout. Postage stamp is bigger than his property. And I said, you're going to need an air source heat pump because you can't put a geothermal one in. And a lot of people put in air source heat pumps, don't do the geothermal, but almost every geothermal installer also does air source, because they'll go and look and say, it doesn't work for you, but I can give you this. And it's second best, but they're trade-offs depending on which one you use.
Thank you. So I think we had a question from the audience about stoves. That's a really good segue. Sean, if you could. move a few more slides, and it's a great.
Oh, wait, go back.
Oh, yeah, you do want to read that, don't you? For sure.
And wait, before that. Here are the opportunities you're going to talk
Please,
about.
yes, give us a nice summary.
It's going to cost 15 times with disasters and everything else involved, doing nothing compared to doing something. Yeah, well, we won't have to pay for it, right? So who cares? How many people feel that way? We're not going to leave this to our kids and our grandkids to clean up.
The cost of inaction.
Yeah, the cost of inaction. There are heat pump incentives. There's been a federal tax credit for years, and with the Inflation Reduction Act, they've actually, it was meant to drop down, and it did drop down. They're bringing it back up. It's a 30% tax credit, and it's good for 10 years, whereas the other ones were good for like 2 or 3 or 4 years. And what happened is that there was a demand, and then it dropped. And you can't stay in business when that happens. So they've now given it 10 years. The state last year started their first state income tax credit also. It's 25% of the cost with a top like solar of $5,000. There's moves afoot to make that $10,000. The tax credits only work very well if you have to pay tax. But if you don't have to pay tax, it doesn't help. But there are also utility rebates. PSEG, Long Island, LIPA, PSEG has rebates. With geothermal, it's like, depending on the efficiency, $1,000 per ton or $2,000 per ton. AirSource also has some. And they change it a bit. So, but there are definitely utility rebates, and those are rebates. Those are they can come off the top, or they can send you a check.
Amanda, we have 2 questions. If you
Okay. Thank you.
Do you have an electric generator at home? And how prepared is the New York State electrical grid if everyone from our town, from all the states, would suddenly get these heat pumps or
Well, it
electric
would
vehicles?
take a miracle because we can't install that many right away. For LIPA, LIPA has said they have enough capacity based on what they're doing now and the projects they have, like the South Fork Wind, like Empire Wind, and I forgot some of the other wind, that based on all that, they will have enough capacity to get us through 2031 without doing anything new. And they're ready to put in another set of bids for more offshore wind. So we have enough. The thing about heat pumps is that they're very efficient in the summertime. So when people turn on their air conditioners, especially the geothermal heat pump, is more efficient. So it uses less juice during that time. And what they do is they shift the load to wintertime because now they're heating. And I think I heard Tom Falcone say something like they got 6,000 megawatts of capacity, and they use maybe 5,500 of it during the summer. They've got 3,000 megawatts available in the wintertime, which is when you're really using it. And as you even out the use of electricity, you get out the highs and lows and you even it out with the heat pump, you can actually make the grid more efficient, and it will lower the per kilowatt hour cost.
On our bills.
And that will have to go trickle down, more than trickle down to us.
Next question, Margaret.
Is it true that 75% of all electricity produced in New York is produced by natural gas?
No. Actually, Long Island has got the dirtiest electricity in terms of pollutants because we have like the Port Jefferson power plant, we've got the Northport power plant, we've got E.F. Barrett, we've got Glenwood Landing, a bunch of others, and Caithness is probably the cleanest, but it's still gas. Upstate, they have a lot of hydropower. Remember Niagara Falls. They have nuclear up there, not so great, but they closed all 6 of the coal-fired power plants in the last 5 years. So New York State actually rates upstate. The upstate grid is separate from the downstate grid. That grid is the cleanest energy generation in the entire country. Long Island is like 7th from the bottom of of the worst.
Did you have a
in the
follow-up
country.
question?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, the power plants. So in New York State, they don't have that many gas-fired power plants. They have a lot of hydro. Their electricity is cheaper because it's hydro. Hydropower is cheap. If you've ever wondered about Freeport or Rockville Center or Greenport and why their rates are lower, each of them has at least one power plant, but they get the rest of it from the New York Power Authority that sells this cheap hydropower. They don't have enough of it to give to LIPA, not nearly enough. But we're going to be the cleanest grid around once we start getting our offshore wind going. And we're talking about South Fork Wind coming online this year or next, and then the others coming online. And by 2030, we'll be pretty darn clean. But then the question is shutting down those other power plants and what happens to those communities, and that's also a concern.
Okay, I'm going to jump in there, and I'm going to move us from power plants back to our homes for a minute, specifically our kitchens. So, Sean, if you can give us a few more slides.
Oh, I wanted to read that one. This is
Maybe we'll save that for the end because it's
Okay.
so emotive. Does that work? Perfect. So a lot of us know him as Chef Matt. If you wouldn't mind passing the microphone, Billy, thank you so much. Chef Matt, if you wouldn't mind telling us in a sentence or two what you do. And then the next slide also will tell us a little bit about another appliance that we can consider for greener homes.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Matt L'Enfant. So I have, yes, a little cooking school here on Main Street. And I'm gonna go straight in the business. Gas. I grew up using gas. You go to school, culinary school, you use gas. I went to restaurants, you use gas. But then eventually, you have some. It was started in the early 90s. We started having to deal with, in pastry especially, with some induction, because induction was great because you could control the temperature better, etc., etc. When I opened my school 4 years ago, we thought that having a gas range made a lot of sense, because it felt like professional, whatever. I spent about $40,000 to bring the gas into the building on Main Street. It took me a long time to make that happen. I'm not even talking about the safety of the construction all around and the exhaust system and the sprinkler system. At the end of the day, it doesn't sound very safe.
Right.
We then look for 4 years. It was great. That was a great start. We started the business, but it turns out it was not so great, because not about the cost of this, no, but it was just about the use, how friendly it was. It wasn't just not friendly. In terms of business, I'm not talking at home, okay? I'm talking about business. You had the noise of the exhaust fan was crazy. Like, you really felt in a professional kitchen, but it was not that great. COVID hit. Eventually, we had to move to a different place. And when we moved, I'm like, I am not putting $40,000 in another system. And that was not convenient also, because people had to gather. I have 16 people. Like, I can only have 2 people cooking at the stove. So by having individual station, we decided to use induction stovetop, because induction is, we use that a lot in France. It's not the most strange thing. It's easy, it's portable, you put it, you use it, it works, it's super, it's very efficient. And now I can have 16 people cooking at the same time. We are not, I don't have an exhaust fan. I don't need an exhaust fan, because it's not, the the property of using induction. I understand a lot of people are afraid of induction. I don't know why. Using gas, I make try to boil oil over an open flame. That is not a good idea. You have a lot of things. Flamber. Why would you flamber anything anyway? You have a lot of. It's a different way of cooking. So yes, I'm in front. I have a wok, and I want to do a stir fry. Okay, we move the thing 1, 2, 3. When you're on induction, I cannot move that pan because that pan needs to be always in contact. Otherwise, the heat stops. So it's you have the energy because now I have to move more to make sure I don't have to move the pan. I have to move, but does it prevent you from cooking? No. I mean, it's,
how is the cooking with it?
It's fantastic. I mean, it's so understand the heat you have is more powerful than the gas. Like
it heats more quickly.
It heats quickly. Like for example, if I try to boil, you want to make some pasta, you put it on the heat. How long does it take? Like solid 8 to 10 minutes. In about 3-4 minutes, I have my water
half
boiling.
the time.
Yeah. So the thing is, I'm not a technician. I cannot explain to you very like in detail how that works, but it's basically electromagnetic magnetic energy. So that hits the cookware. All right. So you need something that works. Okay. So stainless steel, cast iron, pretty much anything. Some don't work just because it's not a ferrous metal outside. But if you have like most of your equipment will work. And so yes, at first, did I have to change some of the equipment? Yes. Is it the end of the world? No.
Will you go back to gas?
No, never.
Okay.
Never. No, because plenty of things. The first one is it's annoying to clean a gas stove.
Yeah.
When you have 16 people cooking, it's a disaster. Here, it's very easy to clean up, so that's great. 2, it's energy efficient. Forget about it. It's, I mean, you Google induction against gas, you're gonna have the same answer everywhere. It's at least 50% less expensive. The energy is concentrated on what you heat. So in gas, if I put my hand next to it, it's going to be hot, correct? The induction is not going to be hot. As soon as I take out and I put my hand, I can touch. It's not a big deal. So it's really not a big deal to change. The other thing is, you have electricity and you try to change to gas, that's a problem. You have to have like some serious work to be done. Here, if you have gas and you're wondering, I have to change it's easy. If you have a plug, that's all you need.
We all have those.
That is pretty simple. So all of this to say, induction, gas, if you worried a restaurant, that's another issue. But at home, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. If you know that gas...
We heard it here from a chef.
It's a no-brainer.
The cooking is not impacted. There's ease of cleaning.
Yeah.
It's efficient, certainly greener.
There was a show my wife used to love. It's Everybody Can Cook, something like this. And I can tell you, everybody can cook on an induction.
It'll make us better
You
cooks.
can do it.
So thank you for that. And I'm going to ask Sean to actually move us a little bit. We can certainly talk a little bit more about appliance questions, but I want to make sure we create space for Hildur, our local nature-based educator, climate activist, community organizer.
Who brought the plastic?
Yeah. An opportunity.
This is the topic. So I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.
I want to thank Anshul and Billy especially for making the trip here. it's really significant to be with the experts.
So Hilder's going to start by talking about plastics, right? Well,
Yes.
do you want to give any more context to what you do professionally?
No, I can. Professionally, I'm very curious. And I'm very curious about a lot of things. So I would call myself a naturalist. That's somebody who knows a little bit about a lot of things. So I'm always curious. And as I'm very curious, I like to calm my mind. So I practice and teach mindfulness and meditation. Because when you're curious, you find out a lot of things that, you know, you have to digest and deal with. And somehow I always end up talking about plastic. I write a column in a local newspaper, and I'm not interested in plastic at all. I think it's really a boring topic, so I want to thank you all for being here. I'm really happy that you're still here. And I'm getting used to the glare here, so I can see you, and I've never given a talk in a seat like this, so this is really fun.
Yeah, it's big.
Yes.
It's big.
I'll make my presentation brief, because you've been listening to phenomenal talks. I'm in the community, so I'm easy to find. I'm with Transition Town. So I'll sort of pitch the problem and solutions, and we can dig into that. You can join a working group and join us, and you know, we can dig deeper into this topic. So let's go.
Great. So you may be wondering, I thought we were talking about gas. I thought we were talking about fossil fuels. What's the connection to plastics, right?
Yeah, before we go there, we just transitioned to a gas stove. And as a working mom, it's twice as fast in making pasta. I'm a scientist too, so I actually timed it. So you can make spaghetti twice as fast.
Right. You said it takes me 8 to 10 minutes. It's taking you now 3 to 4.
It's a whole dish that I make, so I saute and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get into that later. But my home is solar powered, and we make 200% of the energy that we need. And we have a gas stove, and no induction stove, and we're saving up for heat pumps. So when we're ready, we'll be calling Billy. Yeah.
So talk to us about your favorite, least favorite topic, plastics.
Yes.
And the connection. Why gas, fossil fuels, plastics? What's the connection? Does anyone know? Fossil fuels produce plastic, yes. Okay, you all are educated consumers, not, right? The average person may not know that, right? But Hilder, tell us a little bit more. Next slide, Sean.
Yeah, 98% of plastics are made from fossil fuels. The main problem here is litter, pollution. And the climate crisis is a waste mismanagement crisis, whether it's polluting the sky, land, or sea. You have all seen plastic on the beaches. Plastic is littering the ocean. We're basically making a soup of litter of our ocean. And if you look at the global plastics production, you can see that in the last 20 years, we have made as much as in all the previous decades, right? And that's a real problem. So but it's also a solution, because this problem is recent. This just, in the last 20 years, it's escalating, and there is this steep growth projected in the next 30 years. So the picture you saw before, you can triple that, because we don't have downstream solutions for plastic. A problem that we all are probably aware of now is our seabirds. All seabirds have plastic in their stomach. They can't tell the difference. My dog can't tell the difference. Is eating plastic if we're not watching him. And we have just a devastation in our oceans. And we don't have to get into it, but you probably heard stories about whales where you pull out 70 bags, and dolphins. And yeah, I just think it's ethically, it's not a good product. And we've made 10 billion tons of plastic. That's a low estimate. That's 1 ton of plastic per person on Earth today.
Well,
that we made so far. The recycling rate, that's the main problem, and this is why I'm here. The probably less than 10% of this plastic, these 1 billion tons, have been recycled. And the recycling rate in America.
Can anyone guess? Let's guess. Let's see if they can guess.
Yes, guess.
3%? 1%? Very slightly higher.
It's a great audience because it's right there, 4 or 5% recycling rate. So I don't think it's appropriate to call it recycling. I would say, and you should know that by recycling, the industry is downcycling. Plastic as a product cannot be recycled properly. So a plastic bottle will probably end up downcycled of less structural integrity and used for carpeting or fleece sweaters or something like that. So it's not really recycling.
And recycling being when it's entirely broken down.
Yes, yeah, and products that are great. We have a lot of great products. I was trying to pick clothes that were not plastic, but here's a plastic button. It's really hard. Plastic is everywhere. It's in my glasses. So, we have to live with plastic, but the problem is the single-use plastic, right?
Let's get to that slide around how much we actually consume in plastics.
Yes, and if you just go back, the prediction, I couldn't believe it. 1 pound of plastic per 3 pounds of fish. And that's an estimate. I don't want to live in a world like that. Yeah, let's go on. So yeah, we said plastics are made from fossil fuels. Plastics are actually made from a byproduct, ethane gas, from fracking. And somebody was concerned about, Fran was talking about our groundwater. Fracking, of course, is incredibly disruptive to really destroying million years of evolution.
Next slide.
Sedimentation. Here we see fracking site, and it typically pollutes because everything man-made, leaks. We're not perfect. We make mistakes, and this is just a schematic. You can see the flare there. That's usually flared off from the natural gas from the collection of methane. There's an ethane gas, and this is collected by the petrochemical industry and sent to this wonderful place. Next slide. This is, and I love the name, ethane cracker facility. Anybody seen an ethane cracker facility? And we need to know this because this material is all over the place. So this natural gas, the extraction is very invasive, rupture of sediments, right? It's not natural.
Right, we've already said natural in quotes.
Yeah, that's a form of
gaslighting.
Yeah, and greenwashing. And if you look at ethane cracker facility, there's a serious concern. Guess who lives next to an ethane cracker facility? Not us.
Poor communities?
Yes, marginalized communities who can't advocate for their clean air and water. And they typically have lower life expectancy. And this plant, this facility, what they do at an ethane cracker facility, I'm not going to get into don't worry, I'm not going to go into the science, but there's really high temperature where they take the ethane gas and make ethylene, and then that is made into polyethylene, and that's the next slide. This is polyethylene. This is the feedstock for this product. There are sometimes, you may have heard about vessels like ships that, there are disasters at sea where, a lot of this material is just spilled into the sea. So that's really a pity. But in the end, every plastic product, give this one 1,000 years, is going to end up like that.
Turn into that.
Yeah, so this is also known as, we walk the beaches here. I'm an educator. I enjoy walking the beaches with children. And we typically find these, and we call it, in the grassroots world, we call it mermaid tears. These are also technically called nurdles, or microplastics are then the breakdown products of this. Because, and breaking down is not proper to say. Plastic really doesn't break down, it breaks up.
Breaks up.
It's not a natural product. It's never going to go back to nature. It wasn't made in natural ways, and it remains with us. So every single plastic made is still with us, except for the 9% that may have been recycled. Yes.
Let's
And this is how we are today, because the industry is really actually pivoting towards plastic production. And does anybody know why?
Why the push for plastics?
Why is the growth in plastic production? Bill? Yes, can you speak into the microphone?
Sorry,
Because-
I'm coming.
Yes, she's running.
So it seems like the fossil fuel executives are predicting a move towards green energy and less fossil fuel energy, so replacing those profits with plastic production and opening new factories.
That's exactly what's happening. And they're having meetings right now. There are about 300 these ethane cracker facilities either being built or in the pipeline right now. And once they're built, it's too expensive to, nobody wants to not have it there once it's there. There are real stakeholders at play. There's real money behind this.
And why are they building them, right? I mean, clearly the demand is there, right?
Yes, the demand is there, and that's not, this should actually be mentioned. We didn't ask for this.
Right, good.
It bothers me to know too much about plastic.
So
This is why I'm here.
let's go a few more slides and let's talk about how we kind of fell into this.
Yeah, but I want to talk about this.
Oh yes, this is important.
Because I'm a molecular biologist. I love micro scale. So we are actually eating and drinking and breathing the equivalent
Hold
of
your
the weight
stomachs.
of a credit card per week. And the biggest, so the greatest amount of microplastic is in the plastic water bottle. And if you leave it in your car and it's really hot, you should know this about the plastic polymer. The chemical structure has a very sturdy backbone. So this is going to live for about 1,000 years in nature on its own, right? But there are, not every plastic is made equal. There are about 350,000 different kinds of plastics. Recycle that. And they have 10,000 additives now, chemical, nothing natural about these additives that give plastic properties. Like this is hard, this is soft, flexible. And these additives are the big problem because they don't have atomic bonds to the product.
So they leach.
So they bleed into your food. If you microwave, if anything, the take-home message here tonight should be never ever put plastic into your dishwasher and definitely never into the microwave. What's happening then is when you heat up plastic, the molecules, sometimes a plastic can have 50% additives. And additives can be endocrine disruptors. Those are molecules that pose as hormones and disrupt your natural hormone system. And the additives can be carcinogens. We were just recently giving baby bottles with bisphenol A, very dangerous chemical. And this is, we only know the tip of the iceberg about the additives because there's no regulation.
Right.
Every plastic product is assumed innocent until otherwise proven. And there's no testing. You know how much testing every other, in the pharmaceutical industry, there has to be a certain kind of testing. Food-grade plastic is not tested.
It's assumed innocent.
Yeah, and you can try it. You can do this experiment. You can take plastic, put meat into plastic, and put it into the microwave. And it might actually, you might see a dent in the plastic. And those additives that are not atomically bonded to the backbone, the sturdy backbone that lives for 1,000 years, right? Plastic is a polymer that you can stretch out and it's unbreakable. That's the backbone of plastic. It's a carbon backbone. But then the additives are just sort of lodged in there.
And get
So
into
they're
our food.
And then if you apply heat, there's agitation, molecules start moving, and they escape. And we're finding more and more concerning data on that. I think we'll get to that.
Yeah. And maybe, Hilda, for the sake of time, maybe...
Yes, I'll just briefly mention.
Go ahead.
The author of this study, Dr. Philip Landrigan, does anybody know him? Well, you should, because he is the reason that we have our intellect. He was 50 years ago or so instrumental in banning lead from paint and lead from
classrooms and buildings.
Yep. So
homes.
he made together with other scientists. He's a pediatrician at Boston College. He's working with Beyond Plastics now, and this is a recent report, which is why I brought it. It's online. It'll be in the resources, so if you're a nerd like me and you want to know more, you can read it. It's a great report published in March 21st, 2023, and they make a clear case for the public health risks associated with plastic extraction, production, use, and disposal poses risks at every stage. Public health, death, actually, is associated with every stage. And there is also evidence, Dr. Philip Landrigan is working with scientists who are claiming, and they state, that some of these additives may be having neurodevelopmental
impact
and associated with learning differences and autism. And there are many scientists right now studying this, what impact, because the timing of exposure to endocrine disruptors matters. So if an infant is exposed to a plastic additive, it can have really dramatic effects because so much is happening at that time, right? So yeah.
Okay, important warning call.
Yes.
If you can briefly just highlight, I think you've got 2 myths in here.
Yes.
Next slide, Sean.
I think we mentioned this.
Yeah.
We can't recycle our way. And I want to also say, I love recycling, and I see a hand.
We have a hand here.
There's a hand.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I want to, while she's walking over, I love recycling. Recycling is like I just really enjoy recycling. And, but I've learned that I just have to give up the recycling of plastic and stop using unnecessary single-use plastic. Recycling paper every time, yes.
So you're saying...
Very recyclable.
Are you saying that...
I just don't want the confusion that recycling is not good.
Mm-hmm.
Like aluminum, it's a crime not to recycle aluminum. It should be a crime because it's so costly energy-wise to make a can. So kicking the can is just not an option. Once you make aluminum, it must be recycled. And get your Coca-Cola in aluminum. Write Coca-Cola a letter where you say, I don't want it in plastic.
We have a quick question over here.
I'll try to be quick. I just want to thank the gentleman in front for making the connection between the fossil fuel industry driving plastics, because I think it's really important that we understand that the fight ahead is going to be just that, a real fight and battle. And I agree with you, Hilda, the amount of plastics in our food, the pollution at our beaches is awful and disgusting. But I was hoping you can also address the impact on greenhouse gas emissions. We know that the production of plastic, as well as when it starts to break down, releases methane. So I wondered if you can talk about what that means for climate change and global warming, with this battle ahead that we know we're going to fight.
Thank you, Melanie. That is an important part of the equation because plastic as an industry is 5th in line right after Russia as an emitter.
If plastics was its own country.
Plastic was a country, yeah.
Wow.
So it is a major source of emissions, yes. It is by no means a clean method for making material. It's completely synthetic. you can imagine the fun people were having not to be limited by natural resources and being able to make things from scratch like this with plastic. But we are limited by natural resources. It was a myth too, because we are at a critical point in history.
Yes. And to go back for a second, thank you, Melanie, for that important connection. When you were talking before about you don't want to, you're a fan of recycling, but what I think I also heard you say was that just as much as recycling, maybe if not more, our attention should also be on actually just not using single-use plastic, right?
Yeah,
so
especially the unnecessary single-use plastics. Imagine this. I drill into millions of years of earth material to make a stirrer that I use for 2 seconds.
Right.
Plastic stirrers. It's
Right.
insane. It's ecological insanity.
Can you share with the audience your beautiful metaphor about how you see plastic like diamond, single-use plastics like you
Yeah.
see diamonds?
Yeah, well, that came in the 1980s. The industry was selling plastic to the consumer and likened plastic to diamonds. So it was actually in the ads. Plastic is like diamonds, except cheaper. Come get this plastic product. Yes.
Plastic, like the plastics that are in food packaging. What progress can we make in terms of legislation that this could stop? Like, what could we do to control this?
Yeah, let's
Exactly.
go a few
the
more
action.
slides.
That's the action point. That's such a good question, because that's actually one of the solutions. And I'll be following up with material, and if you want, you can join me to a rally on May 2nd in Albany, where we're pushing for the Reducing Single-Use Plastic Packaging Act that was written by Beyond Plastic.
Sean, if you just go a few more slides.
Oh yeah, let's stop for a minute here, because I saw also your hand.
And I just want to clarify the metaphor with the diamonds, right? To continue that, it's if it's essentially like a diamond, why do we want diamonds everywhere?
Yeah.
Right? Why is something that is actually like so rare and difficult to actually extract, why are we seeing it everywhere? Was just kind of the continuation of that metaphor that Hildur mentioned to me. So why don't we finish this point, and then I want to get to some reflections.
Okay, yes. So the industry actually.
Oh yeah, and Sophia has a question, I forgot.
Yeah, Sophia, you want to ask first?
So if we reach the goal of like ending natural gas and like ending putting that into like buildings and houses, does that end like single-use plastic? Like, does that end the industry of plastic?
Oh.
Because it's because plastic is made off of natural gas. So if natural gas is no longer used, can
Yes.
plastic? Yeah. So they're connected in that
That's
way.
a good observation.
Mhm.
You know, if we stopped fracking today, they would have to find another way. And you know, with the brilliant material scientists of your generation, I don't doubt there's another way. We made the plastic. We made this problem. We can make all kinds of wonderful materials. And there are already alternative materials available. And there is really, that was such a good question. Yes, because if it wasn't the feedstock from plastic, 99, this is the best question here tonight. So if the feedstock wasn't there, fossil fuels, 98% of plastics made from fossil fuels, then
They'd have no product.
they'd have to figure it out.
Right. So again, that also shows the intersectionality of the movements, right, and the
Yeah.
causes. So briefly, Hildur, can you give us just the rundown of this?
Yeah, so this is, we're meeting here about gaslighting. These chasing arrows were co-opted by the industry to confuse us.
More confusion.
So many people think they're recycling because they see the triangle and they put this all in the bin. Now that's going to get incinerated because they don't have the capacity for the sorting of our recycling. So if you're living in town of North Hempstead, only plastics 1 and 2 are recyclable.
And what do we know about confusion? What does it do? What does confusion lead most humans to do? Nothing. Give up, right? So,
And let's not give up.
no, absolutely not. But
A
again,
critical legislative, and this is a directive from Beyond Plastics again, they're asking that we only make materials that are truly recyclable. So what if the industry only made 1 and 2
1 and 2s.
and figured it out and stopped adding harmful chemicals, forever chemicals or toxins, carcinogens into the product? So that we need legislative directives that ban the production of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The post-consumer markets for 5 are questionable. There's a special collection site at our solid waste management facility here, but we are not sure. We're studying the recyclability of the actual post-consumer markets for number 5s. It's not worth making.
Got it.
And so 1 and 2, if you're recycling, wash your containers and only put 1 and 2 in there. That's the take-home message.
Thank you. Only 1 and 2 in there. What's that, Sophia? And what about the neck? Do they need to have a neck?
A neck?
We recently heard this, like in order for it to be recyclable, it also needs to have like a neck, if you will, like a bottle has a neck.
Oh,
is that a
okay,
myth?
So it's not like deformed. I think you can recycle 1 and 2 if it's 1 and 2 clean.
Got it.
You cannot if it's mixed. If it's like if there is any other material on the plastic, right? So you do the service of taking off the tags or whatever is there. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll find out and get back to you.
So what I suggest we do so we can get to the closing is, and see if there's, I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 other questions, is let's, well, I think we were talking about this already.
Yeah, so actually we
right?
used to live without plastic. I was just talking to somebody today who was like, remembers a world before plastic. And that particular shelf in the slide before was from the 80s. This you often see in Europe. You can just go grab your fruit and vegetables.
This is great.
Oh, this is a cover. So what happened is plastic production really took off in World War II because the plastic industry was supplying our military people with nylon and raincoats and boots and all sorts of things. And then when the war was over, the plastic industry was obviously wondering what next, because they were doing so well. So they started having meetings about how to sell as plastic, because people coming out of the Second World War were not throwaway people.
Right.
Everything was very precious. It was a terrible war. And people were really meticulous about, and actually came out of a bad recession as well. So there was really not that kind of frivolous throwaway culture. So the industry spent a lot of money on ads like this, where they basically sold the consumer this idea, this lifestyle, the microwavable meals.
Convenience, ease.
Yes. And this particular, it's very, I can add it to the resources, but when you read it, it basically says that housewives, to time this in the 50s, housewives don't need to worry anymore. They don't have to do the dishes. You could just come home and throw it all in the air.
Sexism was quite the vehicle for this campaign, yes.
And here the whole family is having fun with single-use plastics. No more dishes.
So again, going back, it wasn't a demand, right? It was pitched to us. It was sold to us, right?
And we should keep in mind that the people who made plastic knew what they were doing. So there is meetings, transcripts from meetings where there actually some ethical concern, where scientists are warning the industry that this durable, long-life product should not be used for single use. It's not like they didn't know.
Right.
Very bright people made this material.
Right. Sounds like the nicotine and asbestos and lead
Yeah.
all over again. Yep. So why don't you share the opportunity that someone already asked about?
Amazing opportunity, yes.
Next slide, Sean.
Join Beyond Plastics and Transition Town Port Washington, because we're working on it. We're actually working on getting plastic, single-use plastic, out of the schools, and we're working together on trying to get those vending machines out and having more refill hydration stations, because as we said, plastic recycling doesn't really work as of now.
And there's an advocacy opportunity in a few weeks.
Yes, and if you go back, you can see this is just a part of it. Beyondplastics.org/act. If you go to that website, you'll see so many opportunities. They give you all these different opportunities, how to break free from plastic, advocacy tools, learning opportunities. And Judith Enck, who was a regional EPA administrator, she is the founder and president of Beyond Plastic, and she offers a class that you can just listen to. And I did that in the pandemic, which is why I always end up talking about plastic.
The love-hate relationship.
Yeah, it's a love-hate relationship. But I am going to go support Beyond Plastic. If you want to join me, talk to me after this. We are rallying. It's an advocacy day, and we are trying to push for the legislative changes needed to reduce single-use plastic packaging. And especially this particular legislation asks for food-grade plastics to be, safe.
Mm-hmm.
And
regulated.
And regulated.
Yeah.
And if you did anybody here hear about the derailment in Ohio, the PVC? Yeah. So vinyl chloride was used as a chemical warfare agent in World War I. Well, it was heated up into it's extremely toxic, PVC, and vinyl chloride, to flare it up like that in the community is really concerning. But the rubber ducky that
the childhood toy?
Yeah, that the kids are chewing on is made from PVC, and it's actually a carcinogen, one of the additives in that particular product. So Judith Enck says, ditch the ducky, I think. That's her wording.
Yeah. That's a good one for tonight. Ditch the ducky,
Yes.
for sure.
And there's something else that we're doing that day, something to empower you as a consumer. There is a real need for strong EPR regulation. So EPR is extended producer responsibility. That means that we must make the polluters pay.
You bill the polluter.
Yes. So if the polluter takes some responsibility, currently none, that's the problem.
They may change their ways then.
We need Coca-Cola, Nestle, and all the main polluters to take responsibility for the end of life of the product, cradle to cradle. And once that happens, we'll see amazing things happen, because material scientists, they've always come up with solutions. And if you think about nature, we are made from 4 bases, right, that encode the DNA, and just about 20 amino acids, right? Nature is really, in nature, nothing goes to waste.
It's efficient.
In the plastic industry, we have 20,000 additives. It's really, it's unforgivable. But I understand, because humans like making stuff. We even made the nuclear bomb. But, some things we just shouldn't make.
That's a whole other show.
Yeah, so if we think about making stuff, do we have to make all these chemicals that we don't know what effect they will have on us downstream? Now we're finding plastic additives in fetuses. It's crossing the placenta.
So
it's unbelievable. We're finding it in plant material, little fibers, on snowflakes in the Pyrenees, down in the deepest ocean trenches. Like, you can't escape it anymore. The day I saw the blue whale, the biggest mammal on Earth, I was up in the Arctic above Iceland, and I was just, look kids, look, here's the whale, and it then went under, and a plastic bag floated by.
Oh. Is that why the whale's on there?
The whale. We're gonna have the whale act.
So
I'm
yes,
ending with that story. It's a segue into.
It is a segue into our final song, but I think I want us all, we've absorbed a lot. I want us all to just kind of take a few silent moments of self-reflection. And before we do that, I just want to remind us of some potential commitments.
Can I just make a reflection about something?
Sure.
I love that we're in person, because we were doing the climate action series on Zoom throughout the pandemic, and I love being in person. This is the first conversation on Main Street.
From Main Street?
That's happening in person after the pandemic, so I'm loving that.
Here's to many more. So a few things that we've heard already tonight, right? Hilder and Margaret would love your participation and engagement on a Transition Town Port Washington working group. Again, to really kind of delve into this work a little bit more.
We have a lot of working groups already started, but you can join. We can start others. So please join our effort.
In Anshul's materials, he has given us great ideas on how we can take action steps to support what's called the New York Heat and all-electric new buildings acts and campaigns.
And there's a QR code on that table.
There is a QR code, so you can just take those simple acts in under a few minutes. You can join a bunch of us going to Albany on May 2nd to, again, really try to reverse that line graph, right? And really curb the production of plastics and packaging. Keep going. You can follow and support Beyond Plastics.
Yes, please do.
Right? There's an Earth Day celebration this weekend. I think Chef Matt is going to be there doing actual demos, right? With the induction stove.
Actually, Assemblywoman Gina Solitti is going to be doing the demos.
Maybe Chef Matt will go and monitor.
I don't know what Chef Matt's
This is
doing.
how we operate at Transition Town. We give people jobs they don't know they have.
He's voluntold.
Yeah. He's like, what?
And would also just, as you kind of sit here, anything else that sparks curiosity and action for you, any of you in the audience, anyone online watching with the live stream? Are you intrigued, motivated to do something new? Yep.
My buddy. I actually just messaged Transition Town, something I've been thinking about. I work in a school in the city, but I was surprised during the Climate Summit to learn about our school district really doesn't recycle, and we don't compost, and we don't break down our lunches. It's so easy, and we always think of ourselves as such a green town, and I was really shocked and disappointed because in the DOE, and although it's going to be a long process, Eric Adams is putting food scrap containers everywhere in the city, and all schools. You know, I live in a very underserved community. I work in a very underserved community, and they're composting, and we are, taking food scraps. And I was so surprised we wouldn't do that here in our, green community. So what I just messaged them is I would be very happy to start something that I think every grade in our school district, every year in every school should have an assembly and hear about composting. Like, our students in Port Washington should not be sitting in a group of 100 kids selectively and not know what composting is. That was surprising to me. And I think, so we know about it, but not everyone does. Just something as simple as composting, just something as simple as everything we're learning here. But if a presentation was made and we teach the kids from the beginning, and I think that's part of the culture. We have drug assemblies. We should have environmental assemblies in our school district.
Thank you. Join us, please. Come to our next meeting.
And tomorrow, actually,
Wonderful
just
suggestion.
so you know, we are working with a group of high school and middle school students, and they will be doing presentations in all the grades of the lower school tomorrow about single-use plastic reduction.
Yeah,
So
we're
that's a
very
big
proud of
step.
them. they've been pushing for 2 years to get rid of single-use plastic water bottles at the school. They have also been pushing to, so it's a group of about 30 youth, and your daughter joined us. And we're excited about getting it done. And we can share that the school has agreed to not hand out single-use plastic water bottles at graduations. And
Bravo.
Sousa gave up the balloon arches. How do you say that? Balloon
Arches, yeah, you did it.
And so it's possible to celebrate without balloons. And we
Without balloons and plastic, yeah.
Yes, and it's very interesting to. We have, I want to mention that at the Science Museum of Long Island, we have a community compost facility, and everyone is welcome to come and learn with us. And I totally agree. We're behind here.
There is a working group, a composting working group, and actually Claire Brazell is here, who's been working on that as well.
Oh, Claire, the compost mama. She is right here. If you want to know about composting or how to join the community compost, Claire Brazell is right there sitting in the white shirt. And
awesome.
Thank you. How many pounds do we have now? Yeah, like how many tons of food waste have we diverted from
like
the...
about 12,400 pounds.
Wow, super.
Since the pandemic.
Yeah, but that's
12?
just the greens. So before we put the browns in, so it's just what people have brought from their kitchens.
Yes, and I heard that you went to Scarsdale today.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us about that quickly?
Oh, it's a whole other thing.
No, you can say 1 second what you don't want to talk about that? No,
okay.
we're learning from Scarsdale.
We'll have another.
Okay,
Oh,
Paul wants to say.
wait, please don't.
Claire organized a trip to Scarsdale with officials from the town of North Hempstead, including the Commissioner of Solid Waste Management, to see their recycling facility. They are decades ahead of us.
Wow.
And they have a very simple plan, less costly plan to recycle food scraps. They also showed us the total recycling facility, which included everything from eyeglasses, tennis balls, furniture, plastic, and it was quite inspiring. And I think we impressed our public officials, and hopefully that'll lead to action.
Wonderful.
So, thank you for organizing.
Great.
Thanks, Claire.
So I want to, I really want to respect and honor your time. You're all incredibly engaged. We're over, and you've stayed. Maybe why don't we do this? Why don't we have Steve come up and kind of get ready for the song, our kind of closing song? And I just want to, as Steve is getting ready, any final commitments, ideas for commitments that anyone wants to share, or perhaps as you're thinking about your commitment, it's a final question or concern you have that you want to ask one of our panelists. Yeah. I see a new hand over here, and then Fran. Yes. And you're next, Fran.
So I got to know that the town composts, and it started off with, I think, 20 or 25 families during COVID, but I'm not sure if it is open
If you can
to
speak more into the mic.
I'm not sure if it is open to the whole town, like in terms of, like, are you accepting new families for composting? That's my question.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, go talk to Claire after this.
So they are accepting new families for the composting.
Hi, I promise less combative. Apologies for being so abrasive earlier. Hot groundwater gets me all hot. Erin Molyneux, can you speak about precious plastics? Maybe just give this community who might be interested in starting some kind of business locally. It's a transition town's referral, right? Precious plastics, do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, here, can we pass the mic to you?
And Sean,
Sean,
one of the panelists wants to go back to that slide that has the image of the man's face and the quote.
Thanks, Margaret. Thanks, Francine. So Precious Plastic, I'm not a spokesperson for Precious Plastic, but I'm a big fan of what they're doing. I believe it was started in either the Netherlands or Denmark, and they have all their information as open source. It's free to anyone who wants to take it, and it's basically gives you a blueprint for creating a plastics recycling business in your community. Everything, I think there's like 5 basic pieces of equipment, and it's so easy that like you could go to a landfill and acquire these 5 pieces of equipment, apparently, if you're handy enough. Or you purchase them, and it doesn't take up much space. They set one up in a shipping container to show you just how small of a space is required. But essentially it works like this, is you set up a collection point that community members can bring you plastics, clean plastics, and they can either donate them or you can arrange some kind of a fee to incentivize it. Then you take the plastics and you separate it by plastic, the number and the color. You shred it, and it forms small pellets like what we saw with the, was it ethylene? But this,
Exactly.
yeah, the mermaid tears.
That's more memorable.
So you collect it in a bucket, and this becomes your paint, so to speak. You have then the melting point of each plastic type. You can then heat it up, make it pliable, and then shape it and mold it into whatever amazing recycled product you want. People make tables, stools, benches. There's jewelry. I mean, it's really a creative process, and what I find is interesting is it could be something, not only is it providing a public service, community service for recycling, but then if you get young, really innovative people involved, there's opportunities for young people who are interested in design. You do marketing. There's so many sort of educational opportunities that come with this, and the products themselves, you might saturate your local market of a given product, and then you just pivot and make new things. So it's as open as creative as you want to get with it. But I think it provides a wonderful service and has so many environmental, educational, community benefits. Thanks for letting me pitch that.
Thank you. You know, and I have a commitment for all of us up on stage. Is this has been recorded tonight, so I think a really good to do for all of us is to actually really kind of type up and share all the great suggestions from the school orientation on waste reduction to more about what Erin just shared. The site visit, right, to nearby communities that are doing a better job. All the different kind of questions and suggestions that came up tonight. And we're going to actually share those more broadly with the other environmental groups in town, with our legislators, because tonight was also really about community building and identifying new opportunities to run with, right? And to defy the odds with. So that's my commitment. I think, do I share that with my other panelists? Wonderful. Before we turn it over to Steve, I think Billy loves this quote, and I think it's a good one to kind of end on. Go ahead, Billy.
People have said that sometimes it's pitting the environment against the economy. And Robert E. Rubin, a co-chair of the Council on Foreign Relations and a former U.S. Secretary of Treasury, said, "We do not face a choice between protecting our environment or protecting our economy. We face a choice between protecting our economy by protecting our environment or allowing environmental havoc to create economic havoc."
That's the truth.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you for that reminder, right? And that there are real costs. We've certainly talked about public health costs. Again, great cost to our environment and the air we breathe and what ends up into our bodies, and certainly economic costs if we continue the way we're going. However, there's a lot that's trying to stop it locally, nationally, globally, And thanks for all the great suggestions, and I hope you're feeling more motivated. Maybe not less concerned, but hopefully more informed and inspired by each other's activism. So with that, we'd love to turn it over to Steve, an educator of my daughters from summer camp, wonderful educator and musician, so we can close out with song.
With song, that's right, with song. How about, before I end, just a big thank you for Hilda and Amanda and Margaret and everyone for putting this together. Right? And our guest panelists really shared some amazing information, thank you. And the Landmark, speaking of songs, I'm sure you know they have great music here. Some shameless self-promotion. If you're not coming here Saturday night to hear the Englishtown Project, that was the first Grateful Dead show that I ever went to in Englishtown. That's a great band. You could come see a band that I play with called the Joni Project. We do old Joni Mitchell up in Glen Cove at Buddha Jam's yoga studio. So speaking of song, I'm going to share, I like this drum right here. I'm going to share something with you using this drum. This drum is special to me because every rally that I've gone to, whether it was a union rally or a climate change rally or a women's rights rally, I brought this drum. It's a Navajo drum. And it's got a big, beautiful tone. It's made from a tree and a cow. And it's kind of cool. On January 31st, I had the unfortunate opportunity to watch the carcass of a 40,000-pound gray whale be buried in the dunes at Lido Beach. And it was one of many whales that had recently washed up on the shores of New York and New Jersey in recent months. And this has been going on, unusual beaching, since 2016, long before the construction of these wind farms that the fossil fuel industry has created a disinformation campaign to fool people about, blaming all these whale deaths on these offshore wind farms. So it's a mystery, and these poor animals, they're really amazing. As you probably know, whales are songsters. They sing. They have amazing ears, and they use echolocation for navigation, and they communicate over many, 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 many miles. Their voices can carry very, very far in the ocean. And one of the things that I think is amazing about them, when a female is trying to find a mate, she doesn't just mate with any bull whale, any male whale. There are songs that have literally been passed down from generation to generation, from whale generation to whale generation. It's kind of an oral history, and these are songs that they learn from their parents, but then they improvise on them. Sometimes they will go on for 30 minutes and they improvise, and the female whales will choose the whales that are the best improvisers. So I have to admit, as a drummer who plays a lot of jazz, I kind of like the sound of that, actually, not lying. But I like this drum because it sounds like a whale. And it also sounds like the place where they live. Some people say that the sound of waves at the ocean can be really, really relaxing because the rhythm, the tempo of those waves is very, very close to the tempo of our breathing, of the breathing that we heard before we were born, our mother's breath. So I invite you, I think Hilda would like this, she's a meditator, to relax a little bit. And if you're comfortable, close your eyes. Take some deep breaths. the song of the whale wash over you.
Bravo.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming tonight, thanks for listening, and hopefully we got you all in the head, a little understanding, got you all in the heart, a little feeling of connection, and most importantly, got you in the hands. Time to take some action, right?
Beautiful.
Thank you, dear Steve.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming.